Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So we're taking a look at all of the moves the Yankees made. It's only really three of them, not much to write home about. We have gotten a really good look at Jazz Chisholm early on over 3 games. He has 4 home runs. We're going to talk about his impact, what made that deal so good for the Yankees, and really kind of his aura, man. The guy has brought in a spark to this team. I mean, we beat the brakes off the Phillies 2 days ago yesterday in extra innings when we should have won that game in regular action, but of course a little Clay Holmes wild pitch action gets us to extra innings and we have to win it the hard way. But nonetheless, Ryan, I don't know about you, but 2 weeks ago, that Yankees team is not beating the Phillies in extra innings. That Yankees team probably loses that game in regular time. But now you see Jazz making an impact here, doing stuff that we were hoping he would do, but at the end of the day, we didn't really anticipate it based on his numbers this season. It seems like he just wanted to plan a better team. Like, being on the Miami Marlins is depressing because you are constantly in sell mode. You are constantly in I don't really care mode. You are a bad team with bad players, people going, leaving. It's just a constant, kind of negative if you're a player for the Marlins, to be quite honest with you. And for Jazz, he needs to be in an environment like the Yankees provide him. He hasn't even played in Yankee Stadium yet. Like, he is going to step in and make a big impact and see the fans and be in the Bronx, and he's going to live it up there. I'm so excited to see how he makes an impact. I think that trade right now, obviously an A+ at this rate. The sample's small. We'll see kind of what happens over the next couple of weeks as they unfold. But his ability is, like, when he gets on base, he can steal a bag. He can hit home runs. Like, he's fun. He's bringing energy to the clubhouse. This team looks like they woke up from, like cryo sleep, you know what I mean? Ryan, we'll talk about Jazz, his impact, and then we'll talk about Mark Leiter, obviously, and Eniel De Los Santos as well. Talk about those bullpen arms, what the Yankees saw in them. But your initial impression on Jazz, probably the same as mine. I've been blown away. He's been such a nice piece for this team.
I mean, when you become the first Yankee, to hit 4 home runs in your first 3 games with the Yankees, you're having a pretty good start to your career. And look, obviously Jazz Chisholm's going to go through stretches where he, isn't as effective, where, maybe he's getting on top of the ball a ton, or he's running into strikeout issues, whatever it may be, because that's just how baseball works. It's an up and down game. But the thing he brings to the table that you and I talked about this team desperately needing, a scoreboard changer, a guy who he comes up and you're like, he can take the ball out of the ballpark. Jazz Chisholm had 17 home runs in the season. He had 19 in 97 games last year. This guy's a power hitter. He can hit for power, and that's important. They needed another guy who can hit for power because now when you look at this lineup, Judge, Soto, Wells, Stanton, Chisholm, they all, Rice to an extent, they can all hit home runs. They can all drive the ball out of the ballpark. It's what they needed. And Chisholm, dude, I'm getting very small sample size. No one should get caught up in this stuff, but the swing is so pretty, man. Like, it's so easy to see why teams fell in love with him as a prospect, because you look at that swing, man, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It really is. And the way he's translated to playing third base for the New York Yankees, it's been awesome. It's been excellent. It's been what we needed. Looking at what the Yankees really are asking from him, they're asking him to learn a position on the fly, and he's looked smooth out there. He's looked so smooth. He's looked remarkable. This is what happens when you bring an incredible athlete to your team, and he's 26 years old. He will not turn 27 until next February. This is a guy who could potentially be a piece for your team for the near future. He's here for 2 more years after this one. Obviously, I'm not going to get caught up in this, right? Like, I remember when Harrison Bader hit like a bunch of home runs in the postseason, and it was easy to get caught up and dream on what he could have been. It's easy to dream on a player when they first come up or what they first do, but Alex, he's passed the test of flying colors. He's passed that test of flying colors thus far, and he's really impressed. He's been an excellent. He's been, honestly, has he been the best bat traded thus far? Like, I think that's what you could argue, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, you give up Augustin Ramirez and the way that Austin Wells has been playing lately, we're not going to miss Augustin. Obviously, a great prospect. We've talked about him many, many times and written many articles about his development. Excited for him, but obviously he goes now to a team where actually he will probably get minutes. He'll get innings there. So good for him. At least he'll get playing time, and the Yankees have a really solid duo. Obviously, Carlos Narvaez is starting today, but Wells and Jose Trevino is more than enough to be a competent catching group. Probably one of the better ones in the league, you could argue, maybe the best. I kind of feel right now the Yankees made the right decision. Now, Jazz is going to, I think, even when the Yankees are losing, he's got that energy that helps him get out of funks. You know what I mean? They didn't have that guy that was like just all smiles all the time. So we really, really think that he is going to be a special impact piece for this team. And also the way they're using him, obviously they're not using him at leadoff. And I wanted to discuss that for a second. Alex Verdugo, he's been really solid at leadoff recently. And, you know, my theory on it, Ryan, and I'll get your take on it, is that pretty solid whiff percentages, solid strikeout percentages. You have to pitch to Alex Verdugo leading off, right? You have to pitch to him because you want to get him out before, you know, you have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge up. They're throwing him strikes. He doesn't whiff a lot. He makes contact, and I think he's making more contact because they have to be aggressive with him. I think that he's working pretty well. Today they have Gleyber Torres batting leadoff, probably just a matchup-based thing and statistical, you know, whatever kind of decision there. But Ryan, like, why do you think Verdugo's been solid at leadoff? Obviously, like, they changed him up. They've been moving him around, but kind of feel like they may have found a home for him, and maybe they keep him there long term. You know, what are your thoughts so far, and why do you think he's made some nice plays there recently?
I mean, Verdugo at the top of the lineup, I think it's just like he was just so cold that he at some point has to get hot. I think that plays into it as well. But look, the best thing for this team is that guys that are cold get hot, right? Like, I know that people are concerned about how does this complicate, like, will this persuade the Yankees to not bring up Dominguez, this and that, and like, you can't be thinking about what this means for Dominguez. You should be thinking about what this means for this team, because right now, as currently constructed, Alex Verdugo is the left fielder, right? That's the reality, right? That's the world we live in. Can't think about the guys who aren't here. Can't think about the guys who aren't on the 26th man right now. Like, I'm not thinking about, man, what is if Ron Marnacho comes up and pitches well, shit, you know what I mean? Because what if that means that I don't know, Scott Efros doesn't get to come back? Like, I don't care about that stuff. I want my guys on my 26th man roster to play well. We're not playing politics here. We're playing the best guy should play every day. Now, granted, I think you and I agree Jason Dominguez is a better player than Alex Verdugo, and that I think when Jason Dominguez does come up, he will earn playing time over Verdugo. But if somehow Verdugo plays himself so well that, you know, plays so well down the stretch that he ends up with like what? Like a 110 WRC plus or 105 WRC plus, it would take like a significant hot streak for him to get to that point. Like, he's at a 91 WRC plus right now. It would take him being awesome, right? Like, just straight up incredible down the stretch for that to happen. So if he finishes the season with numbers good enough to justify not playing Jason Dominguez, it means he really found it. And at that point, like, of course you're going to play Verdugo if he got that hot, right? So I think people need to just, again, like, the Yankees have to play their best players. They do. They have to play their best players. And, you know, hopefully, I think it's going to be Dominguez. I think Dominguez is their best player, in that group between him and Verdugo. But if Verdugo stays hot, hey, maybe that changed the conversation. I'm rooting for us to have this is good. This is good. This is always going to be good for the Yankees, and it's good to have multiple options who can play the outfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now you kind of look at this outfield in general. Trent Grisham made a really nice diving catch yesterday. His bat has been, you know, inconsistent, but he's made some nice plays over the last couple of weeks. You know, I don't know. Something has to happen, in my opinion, for Jason to be pulled up. I think that they need an injury or an opportunity. I don't think they're going to just take Verdugo out right now. He's been hitting better and playing solid defense the whole season. I think it's going to take like Stanton getting hurt again or like whatever it might be. I do think that something would have to happen for Dominguez to get called up at the moment, but something always happens. So I do think the probability is still high we see Jason Dominguez play for this team at some point this year. But with that being said, let's look over to Mark Leiter. I'd say this is a really good acquisition. You give up Jack Neely, another prospect. I don't see why people were freaked out about this at the time. This is a swing and miss bullpen arm, guys. This is what the Yankees desperately needed. His savant page looks like a really pretty thing to look at. And I'll give you some insight into kind of why people freaked out. The initial reaction was a 33-year-old with a 4.10 ERA. Guys, he's a 2.55 expected ERA. He has 12.78 strikeouts per nine. His strikeouts are up significantly this year. His ground ball rate's a career high. He's walking 3.38 batters per nine, which is like nothing that much right home back. He's giving up the fewest home runs in his career. This guy is a perfect candidate. We talk about candidates for regression. This is a perfect candidate for progression. His ERA is probably going to improve with the Yankees. He is a really solid bullpen. Yes, he's a little bit older at 33 with 2 more years left of control. But this is a guy coming off a 3.5 ERA season last year. He is a very solid arm, Ryan. I know you were a big fan of this move. I really like Mark Leiter Jr. I think this is going to be a really solid piece for the Yankees down the stretch here over the next 2 months.
Yeah, and he was excellent yesterday. Kind of got himself out of trouble and kept the Yankees in the ball game. And, something that the Yankees have really struggled with is having guys in those extra inning situations, having enough arms left. Because usually when it gets to extras, like if they didn't have Leiter, it would have been Michael Tonkin. And, let's assume, and I'm not, you can't assume this, but let's assume for a second here that he gets the shutdown inning, and then the same 11th inning plays out the way it does. What happens in the 12th? You've got like Tim Hill, and then today you're waking up and Ron Arnacchio's the only guy who's fresh and ready to go with Nestor Cortez starting. Like, that's a disaster, dude. That's a disaster. And look, today is, granted, it is a punt game. Like, let's be real, guys. Like, they're not playing Wells because they have to rest him for today. LeMahieu's starting. Like, this is a punt lineup. I'm not like oblivious to that fact. But that doesn't, like, it doesn't stop it from being, like, it doesn't mean that they can't, like, they have arms in the bullpen that are, like, fresh because they have an extra guy in Leiter Jr. And Leiter Jr. could pitch today, I think. I don't know if he was used, was he used in his, like, he was not, no, he didn't pitch on the 29th. So, I think Boone is willing to have him go for today. You could have Leiter. I know Holmes has struggled, but he is available, so, that does matter. Is Canley available?
We called up Ron Marnacchio.
Right, we called up Ron. But, like, my point more so is, like, imagine if it was only Ron Marnacchio and Tim Hill. Like,
yeah, that'd be bad.
And with Nestor Cortez starting against the Philadelphia Phillies, like,
oof. No
which,
thanks.
by the way, I will say this, dude, Will Warren getting the call in the morning, basically, that, hey, Garrett Cole's, like, not feeling well, you got to come up. I was
he
fine
with
made
his
one
performance.
mistake pitch to Austin Hayes, but, like, dude, he rocked. Like, he rocked.
And it barely got over the fence. Barely got over the fence. He had a couple really nice high elevated strikeouts. That one hanging slider did him in, but, like, aside from that one pitch, I was impressed, man. I thought he came in, stepped in, looked confident, and did it against the Phillies, man. They have elite hitters across the board. He kept the Yankees in the game, and he pitched almost 6 innings. So I'll take that from him. I'll take that kind of performance as a rookie debut. I'll take that. That was fine for me. Of course, like, losing Garrett Cole is tough, but he had a stomach flu. Like, he was just beaten up over the past couple of days, it seems. He pitched 106 pitches, I think, in his last game. Like, he's been grinding. So I get it. Nothing to be too concerned there. Seems like he'll be totally fine. But, yeah, I was impressed with Will Warren for sure.
Yeah, I'm and, like, getting back to Leiter here, like, Leiter has a splitter, and, like, how many, like, he has a pitch that I don't think anybody else in the bullpen can replicate. And that's important. Like, having guys with varied looks, it's important. It's important. It's a nasty pitch, absolutely. It's a whiff rate over 60%, Alex. That's stupid, dude. That's gross, right? And it was funny, like, the scouting report, I think Brandon Cuddy tweeted it out. It was like, one person was scouting report, he's got huge balls, and, like, yeah, that scouting report looked to be pretty correct, because yesterday that was a ballsy performance. But yeah, no, like, Leiter, he has a nasty splitter. It's a pitch nobody else in that bullpen really has. I think it's a varied look. It's going to give the Yankees a varied look. He's a good arm, and he's under control for 2 more years after this one, so his stuff isn't really reliant on the things that don't age well, like fastball velocity. Like, it's not like he's going to need to rely on 98 to get it going. He sits 91, 92. He's not relying on velo. He's relying on just sequencing and movement. And he misses bats, he gets ground balls, and he looked good yesterday, man. He pitched against a pretty tough part of that lineup, and he looked pretty damn good. So, the shape of the bullpen, I think getting one guy you really can rely on, and then hopefully you get guys back, I think that'll change things. But I think the key with this bullpen right now is Holmes has to find it. And yesterday, like, the wild pitch sucked, but I don't know. The first batter, he executes 4 straight nasty pitches to Real Muto, but he reaches. There's, like, a bunch of soft ground ball BS. They almost blow the game on a ball that hits off of LeMahieu's foot if Gleyber doesn't. Which, by the way, the fact that Gleyber made that play, but, like, can't make a routine play right at him up, like, 10 runs is so funny, dude. Like, maybe it's not funny, but I don't know. I find it hilarious that Gleyber was the one who, like, technically saved the game with that play. It's the bullpen's going to hinge on whether Holmes can get back on track or not. Is that fair to say? Like, that's, I think everything else, like, Canley, setup guy, he's a fine middle relief guy. Weaver rocks. Tonkin rocks. Tonkin, that was so fun yesterday, seeing him go fucking wild after that strikeout. Hill is fine. Cousins misses bats. Leiter rocks, excuse me. It's just a matter of whether Holmes can lock it down. Because if Holmes can't lock it down the stretch, then, yeah, we're going to have a bullpen problem. I think that's the bullpen problem right now. It's Clay Holmes. He's the bullpen problem right now.
Yeah. And you have Aaron Boone after the game saying stuff like, "Oh, he looked great. His pitches look great." I'm like, dude, he like threw a wild pitch to drive in a run there. So, we need better from Clay. Leiter obviously need him to continue showcasing what he did with the Cubs. The ERA will improve. I'm not concerned about that number whatsoever. And then you have Enyel De Los Santos, who is another swing and miss guy, right? The Yankees obviously had an agenda at the deadline in the bullpen. They wanted guys who were going to create swing and miss opportunities. Now Enyel is not as good as Leiter. Keep that in mind. His ERA is adjusted accordingly. Specifically, I think it's a 4.6 something, 4.46 and a 4.41 expected ERA. Strikeouts look fine at 10.71. Doesn't walk too many batters. He is giving up a stupendous amount of home runs. 2.45 home runs per 9 over 40.1 innings. That has been what rings his bell, right? That's been the big negative here. If he can eliminate the home runs, the Yankees will get a really solid pitcher. And Matt Blake may have an idea for that. His velocity is good at 95.6 miles an hour. I don't see why he can't reduce those home runs. It looks like it's more of a location thing. He does have, what does he utilize? A four-seamer, slider, and then occasionally a changeup. Opposing batters are mashing the absolute shit out of his four-seam fastball at 329 batting average and a 683 slugging rate. That pitch has to be better. That's where the Yankees may tweak it. It gets a lot of horizontal movement, 11 inches of break, which is great, but it looks like it's breaking into the freaking barrel. So, Ryan, how would you adjust this? What do you see in a guy like De Los Santos? You look at the home run saying, oh, that's his kryptonite. How are you going to adjust that? How are you going to fix that if you're Matt Blake?
Yeah, this is tough. This is it's not as cutthroat, I feel as it's not as cutthroat as I think, or not as clearly cut, you know what I mean, cut and dry. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. You know what I mean? It's not as obvious as oh, Clay Holmes, throw the sinker more. Oh, Michael Tonkin, good breaking ball, maybe, shouldn't throw the sweeper as much. Or Tim Hill, hey, his FIP is really good. It'll just probably get better. Jake Cousins are just having him throw the slider 90% of the time. It's so funny, dude. He's literally just throwing 5 sliders in a row. He's a funny guy. But when it comes to De Los Santos, his fastball's regressed heavily from last year, but it's also being used less than last year. So the answer isn't, oh, just don't throw your fastball. You can't not throw your fastball. He has to throw it to some capacity. The slider, that's the pitch I find interesting because, yes, on paper it's performing really well. It doesn't seem like a problem pitch for him, but he's actually, I think the pitch has gotten worse. I think the Yankees need to figure out a way to get it back to where it was last year because it's not dropping as much, and I think that plays into the fastball not performing well. He's a low slot release guy, so his four-seamer doesn't really move that much up in the zone, but because it's from a lower slot, it plays up. His slider doesn't drop as much. It was dropping around it had 1 inch of induced vertical break last year, which means it's dropping a ton. This year it's at 6 inches, so it's moving more like a cutter in terms of vertical movement. So it's not really dropping. There isn't that vertical separation off the four-seamer. It's a little easier to read. It's a little easier to read if you're a hitter. I think the solution is trying to get that slider down the zone a little more, and maybe they are aggressive in the slider usage. Go, hey man, throw that thing 55% of the time. Don't throw it 45% of the time. Let's try 55%. Maybe the changeup, that's a pitch that it's good in small samples, but we'll see if maybe the Yankees dial it up a little bit because he really does struggles against lefties. He could in theory throw a sinker or maybe a sweeper. I don't think he has I think the way his body moves, he could get a sweeper, but with the way his wrist, the way he orients his wrist, he gets a lot of arm side runs, so I don't think he's necessarily the kind of guy who's going to start succeeding with a sweeper, and I don't think that's the solution either. He struggles against lefties. I don't think his problem is not having something to deal with righties. The sinker is an interesting idea because having 2 fastballs inherently plays up both of them, and it feels like it could be a natural fit for him because of his release height and his the way he pronates, so it's gonna cause a lot of arm side run. Michael Tonkin is kind of a good example of this. He's kind of a guy who has that funkier, he kind of releases more across his body than over the top, kind of like De Los Santos. He throws a sinker and a fastball, and having both pitches helps him. So I think maybe De Los Santos could be a guy who is a dual fastball guy, and that kind of helps him play up the four-seamer. But Alex, this is a little more a obscure one. Not it doesn't make sense. The strikeouts are there, and as you mentioned, but when the goal is trying to limit damaged contact, command plays a role in that. Location plays a role in that. Sequencing plays a role in that. Sometimes it's not an obvious tweak. It's just an under the radar, like, hey, let's get the fastball up in the zone more. Hey, let's make sure we're missing down with the slide. Let's not miss in zone. In a sense, sometimes it's even beneficial to say, hey, it's okay to walk more guys if you're going to let up less damage contact. Instead of 3-1 challenge with a fastball, just throw the slider, throw it down in the zone, walk the guy, go get the next guy, that kind of thing. So I wonder if it's a mental thing, if it's a cue, if it's a location thing, or if the Yankees are going to try to increase or decrease pitch usage, or potentially add a new pitch, which again, I think the sinker is the only one in my head that stands out as the way his body moves would allow him to throw a pretty good sinker.
Yeah, and I think that if they can figure him out, they can reduce the home runs, he can be a very effective arm for this Yankee team. But listen, we talked about, Yandy Diaz, we talked about Isaac Paredes, we talked about so many potential pieces. The Yankees had a preliminary deal in place with the Detroit Tigers for Jack Flaherty. Of course, Dodgers coming to get him instead. Maybe a good decision because he had a back injury earlier this month in early July. And he needed 2 injections to, help him. So maybe he's going to hit a wall very soon. Looks like the fatigue may be settling in, and the Yankees didn't want to make another Frankie Montas mistake. And, as you mentioned on the podcast, before we knew about these injury concerns, you were willing to give up Spencer Jones. But after learning about the injury concerns, probably not so much. Don't want to take that risk for a guy that could be really, really great in terms of his power and hitting in the future with Jones. Obviously, did some really exciting things during spring training this past year. So, I'm curious to see how this team continues to progress, getting Clark Schmidt, Ian Hamilton, Scott Effross, Cody Poteet, Stanton getting back into the swing of things. This team has enough talent to win a championship, guys. They have enough talent to win a World Series. I just really think they have to get hot at the right time, and they have to stay hot. You know what I mean? This can't be like a really hot for 1 game or 2 games and then go ice cold for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? They need to go into the postseason playing their best baseball, and they need to dominate every single day and keep the energy high and keep the aura, good. They gotta just maintain what they've done at times this season. We've seen what they can do. They're dominating a lot of these games, but they're losing it because of the bullpen sometimes. The offense disappears on occasion. When you got Juan Soto and Aaron Judge in the lineup and some of the supplementary pieces, those complementary pieces rather, assisting and playing well, this team can do a lot of damage. So I'm excited to see how they go. I think the bullpen was okay. I'm not going to say it was great. Not going to say it was bad. I'm happy we didn't give away Jason Dominguez or Spencer Jones or Will Warren or Chase Hampton. I'm happy about those things. But I'm also like, if it comes down to it and we didn't get that piece to push us over the hump, we will remember that. If we remember the leadoff spot was horrible during the postseason, if we remember not having that big-time bullpen piece or a starting pitcher we desperately needed, and we don't have that during the playoffs, and we can come to the conclusion that that's what kind of did them in, it is going to hurt, and we're not going to forget that. But for now, happy that we have these prospects still, and they continue their development, and we'll see how things progress over the next couple weeks. Of course, got you guys covered on all Yankees news. Make sure to drop your thoughts and comments down below in the YouTube comment section. Like and subscribe as always, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.